On the paper, there is an elaborate image that cannot be seen, but you know it is there. There are some small lines and some numbered dots. If you grab your pencil, take a little bit of time to connect those dots, the image appears right before your eyes. Sounds a lot like life.
Currently rocking in the school of life. He is here talking about stuff and whatever's going on in his brain. You know it is 100% Bridget!
All right, here I am. It's me talking about living life and loving Jesus. I want to thank everybody. You guys did a great job. I've reached 4,000 audio downloads. So if you're a follower or listener on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or wherever you get your Apple, or wherever you get your Apple, from the tree down the street, or from wherever you get your podcast from, thank you very much for helping me reach that goal by the end of this year. I'm actually a little behind on the goal, but that's okay. We reached it and we're doing great. And I just want to thank everybody that listens. And if you're watching me on YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because especially that like button. You hit that like button, the algorithm does more things. And so make sure to take care of that for me. That'd be greatly appreciated. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to all the people that are listening on audio. And if you're watching me on YouTube and Facebook, because I had the video there on Facebook also, just continue to just check me out and see what I do. And thank you once again. So we're going to dive into this in just a minute, because I got to talk about wildbull.shop. I use the beard butter. They have all the great, it's a lifestyle brand for men. They have some great products. They got your shampoo that'll actually help your hair grow. They got beard products. They got, this stuff is just fantastic. I use the beard butter personally and the beard oil personally, and it does a great job. And if you want to get your hands on this stuff, go to wildbull.shop, enter the coupon code WildBull100 and get 15% off of select products. That's wildbull.shop. Own your game. All right, so here we go. I got to get that in there. Thank you for thank you for just hanging out and do it. I got to do what I got to do, and thank you very much. And I just can't thank you guys. I just can't say thank you enough for the people that actually listen to me, and it's just so appreciative, because I'm just one of those guys. I've gone through a lot of stuff, so it's great to know that somebody's out there listening, and that people are paying attention to what's going on at 100% Richard, and living life, loving Jesus. And just thank you very much. And that's actually going to bring me to my point today, because this is one of the dots in my journey. And if you listen to the intro, I'm probably going to talk about connecting the dots. If you read the title first, and this is one of the dots in my journey, and to the dream that God's given me to reach the people and to speak his messages and things of that nature. And it's been an amazing journey, and I just thank everybody for following along with me and doing this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of get right into it. And if you're a planning person, you will, let's say, as they say, you'll put all your ducks in a row, and you have an idea of what you're going to do. You're writing everything down. You have an idea of what you're going to do at all times. You're planning ahead. And essentially what you are doing when you're doing that is connecting the dots of all the things that have to happen in order to get to your goal. And if you're not a planning person, you know where you're headed. I'm not a planning person. I don't plan well. I'm not very good at writing stuff down. I'm just being honest, but I know what the final goal is going to be. I have an image of that. And so I have to learn to connect the dots along the way. But what really happens is, I know where I'm headed. You know where you're headed, even if you're not a planning person. But either way, whether you plan each dot or you just land on each dot as you go, we still have to connect the dots along the way. Things are going to happen along the way. We're going to have issues on our way to our goals. We're going to have things like that. Things just happen in life. And the dots are there to give us direction and keep us on the path. And if you ever seen a dot to dot or a connected dots book, there's little lines in between some of the dots right there. And those are the areas where we don't actually need to connect a dot. because that section's already taken care of for us. So sometimes we come along a place where we won't have to double back in order to continue our journey. It's already there for us to do. And that's how you know God puts things in position for you. Because as you go along your way, as you go along your path, as you go along finding your dream, and you continue in the direction to the thing that God's planned for you, you will find yourself in areas where you go, man, I feel like I've already done this. Well, that's that area where that little line is already there. So you're going to bypass that. You're going to come across that section maybe a little later, but you don't have to actually connect those two dots. You're just going to arrive there. And that's because inside each and every one of us is an image of where we want to be in life, or a dream we want to achieve. And when we spent a little bit of time connecting the dots in life, we will actually get to that final image. The path is never straight. There are always curves and bends and twists, because we usually have to learn things along the way to where we are headed. So if you've actually ever looked at the dot to dot, you can actually kind of hold that picture. You know, if you've seen a Connect the Dots book or something like that, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go Google Connect the Dots. You'll get it. Or like go to Denny's and look at the back of the kids menu. There's usually a dot to dot on there, but you can kind of see the image, and all the little numbers and dots and little lines are there, and you can kind of go, that might be a giraffe, but you're never 100% sure until you've actually gone through and done the work. So in the process of that, we're learning. We'll find ourselves, and as you're doing the dot to dot, you'll find yourself in a difficult area, because you'll be like on number 10 and look up and there's 100. You know, you're like, oh wait, I still got to go to 11. So we find ourselves in difficult places, and we as humans, we always want to blame something else when things get hard. But most likely things are hard because we don't know how to do it. And once you do it, it won't be hard again. Because now you know how to handle that situation if it arises again. And that's each dot in our life is going to be the next thing, the next level, the next place, the next whatever's happening. And so we go through these learning processes. We go through situations that teach us how to move on to the next dot in life. And because we now know how to handle that situation, we I'm not going to say don't have to deal with it again, but we already know how to deal with the next thing if we've learned something along the way. And when you think about it this way, when we were little, we couldn't read. You know, when you were born, you didn't know how to read. You'd see these hieroglyphs on the TV. You'd look at a book and go, I have no idea what that says. And then eventually you learn how to read, and then at some point you just read. You don't think about it. You look at words and they come to your mind, and you know how to say them, and so you've learned how to do something in the way. So it just happens. And this is the same function when we're connecting the dots in life. The numbers are right there in front of us. We know the path we're supposed to follow, but we choose sometimes to quit or to leave it unfinished, or we decide we don't like the way it's coming out, and we try to do it faster by maybe taking a shortcut. And when we do this, our goal, plan, or dream is either unfinished or it becomes flawed because we went on our own path. And that's the nice thing about knowing Jesus, is because, you do a dot to dot with a pencil, because if you make a mistake, you can go back and erase it. So like, if you find yourself off the path, because in knowing Jesus, you find yourself off your path and in his direction, he can fix it. He can erase the issue. He can erase the direction that you went and get you right back on the dot that you need to be on. And when we accept Jesus, we are put on that path and a plan that God has in place for us. We're set out on said plan, and it's up to us to connect the dots along the way. So we have the image before us. I said this a couple of weeks ago. It says that Jesus is a lamp unto our feet, not the light at the end of the tunnel. So sometimes we don't really know what direction we're headed, because we're looking down at the light where we need it to be, and we're connecting each dot along the way. And I'm going to talk about Joseph. Everybody knows who Joseph is. Everybody knows this story. So I'm not going to spend a half an hour reading, 10 chapters or whatever it is, and where Joseph's story is. But here it is in Genesis 37 through 45. This section reveals the story of Joseph and the dots that had to be connected for his dream to come to pass. So here's a quick rundown. All right, here we go. I'm going to try to do this quickly. So Joseph has a dream of his family bowing down to him. His brothers throw him in a pit and tell his dad that he died. He gets sold into slavery. He gets picked up by Potiphar. He becomes the main man in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife lies about Joseph and he goes to prison. He becomes the manager in the prison and he interprets dreams while in prison. And then because he interpreted those dreams, he gets a meeting with the Pharaoh. He interprets Pharaoh's dream and becomes Pharaoh's right-hand man. His family comes for grain and Joseph reveals himself and then they bow down. What? So that's a long list of stuff that Joseph connecting the dots along the way to his dream. Now I'm going to say this. If you have a really big, wild, crazy dream for somewhere for you to go, don't tell people about it right away. But that might throw you in a pit. No, I'm not saying that. Well, I guess I did, but too late now. So, but the amount of time, everybody wants, today's generation, today's people want everything right now. I wake up in the morning, I go to my job, and I want my paycheck today instead of 2 weeks from now. I want, I can go on my phone and I can do this, that, and so on and so forth, and I can have everything instantly. I don't even have to go to the fast food joint anymore. The fast food joint comes to me, and which is a bad thing if you're trying to lose weight. So these are the kinds of things that you have to kind of have an understanding that dreams take time. Now, if you're willing to do the work and you're willing to connect the dots and you're willing to go through the process and you're willing to do all the stuff that is required to get to your dream will probably come faster. But almost everybody will have some sort of issue along the way. Now let's look at this. The dreams that Joseph had of his family bowing down to him didn't come to fruition until over 20 years later. So we're told in Genesis chapter 41, verse 46, that Joseph was 30 years old when he began to serve in Pharaoh's court. Then it was another 7 years of prosperity in the land, and then the several years of famine that was part of the dream that he interpreted before his family came to Egypt for grain. So there was like 13 years just there from the time of the dream to the rise in power, and another 10 or so years before the fulfillment of Joseph's dream. So it took a little bit of time. Joseph had to have that, I said this last week, he had to have that mustard seed of faith to keep him going, and his faith had to grow. He had to continue to move forward. And each place that Joseph went, even though it was a difficult situation, he took that situation and did the best. He rose to the top. He never wavered from the image. He never wavered from the place the dream that God gave him. He just kept connecting the dots along the way, doing the things that were needed as he arrived at each situation. And you have to have an understanding of that. You have to be able to go, if I run into a brick wall on the way to my dream, or on the way to my desire, or in the direction that God has me going, I might need to break out a hammer and take a couple of minutes to knock down the brick wall that's in my way. I might need to rise to the top of situations at each dot that I'm at on my path. That's because each dot on our path elevates us to the next place, the next thing on the journey to the image, dream, or direction. And when we finish one image of the Connect the Dots book, we turn the page of the book and go on to the next one. Right on, right on.